Fall is finally here. Well, technically it's still summer, but I do smell football in the air. And even though it's still summertime, fall camp has begun, and we are that much closer to kicking off the 2023 college football season. And today, I'm going to give you my biggest takeaways from week one of fall camp for the West Virginia Mountaineer. So pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and let me pour you out a shot of top shelf college football content right after a word from my sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you. What is up, college sports fans, Big 12 fans, and fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into another edition of Koozas Corner. Belly yourself on up to the bar and let me pour you out a shot of top shelf college football content. On tap at Koozas Corner today, we're talking about fall camp. I'm going to give you my 6 biggest takeaways that I've gotten so far from listening to the player and coach interviews. So let's dig into the show. The first thing I want to touch on is the quarterback position. Now, Coach Brown didn't really say a whole lot about the quarterback position, but that's the one storyline we all want to follow because we want to find out who the starting quarterback is going to be. But what he did talk about was that both guys have remained even keel. You know, when adversity has come up, when they've made a bad play or whatever, they've remained even keel. They haven't gotten too high when they make a good play, not too low when they make a bad play. And that is a huge part of playing quarterback. And even when he talked about Garrett Green, he talked about how Garrett had really made huge strides in that department even since the spring. And he talked about how Garrett is a high-energy guy. When you have a high-energy guy like that, even when he is at a normal level, it might seem down to the rest of the team. So he's done a much better job of maintaining kind of the same level of energy and same level of emotion, regardless whether he makes a good play or a bad play, and that's good for that quarterback position. Now, another thing about Garrett Green, and I picked this up actually from listening to his appearance on the 3 Guys Before the Game podcast last week. I recommend you go check out the interview. Very interesting and very entertaining. But Garrett is actually up to 203 pounds now. And, you know, Garrett's a small guy. He's not a big guy. So 203 for him is pretty good. And a lot of people might say, well, Couz, that's still really small for a Power 5 quarterback. And I agree. It is smaller than most Power 5 quarterbacks. But it's not that small, guys. I'm going to give you a couple quarterbacks that compare to Garrett Green in size. The first one, Kyler Murray. He was the top draft pick off the board when he come out of Oklahoma? Garrett Green's only 4 pounds lighter than what Kyler Murray was when he was drafted in the first round out of Oklahoma. Another quarterback he's similar to, Bryce Young. Now, Bryce Young's probably a little bit taller than Garrett Green, by an inch or two maybe, but he was about the same weight as Garrett Green. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Garrett Green is going to be as good as 2 first-round draft picks or, heck, top draft picks in Kyler Murray and Bryce Young. I'm not saying that, but what I'm telling you is size does not have to be a concern. If Garrett does the right things, if he takes care of his body and you know, keeps his weight up, eats right, stays healthy, but even more importantly, if he can avoid unnecessary contact in football games, if he uses his baseball skills that he has, which, by the way, he said in that interview with 3 Guys that baseball was his best sport and he probably could have played professional baseball. So, you know, utilize his ability to slide. Slide when instead of taking a hit, Garrett, slide, man. Be smart. Protect yourself. Run out of bounds when you're about to take a hit near the sideline. You know, there are things he can do to protect his body, and that's what Kyler Murray used to do. You know, Kyler Murray didn't take unnecessary hits. He would slide when he needed to slide, get out of bounds when he needed to get out of bounds. Now, Bryce Young, he took a lot of hits, but Bryce Young wasn't necessarily running quarterback. He's a totally different style quarterback than the other 2 guys. I mean, he could run enough to avoid traffic and avoid taking, you know, a sack, but he wasn't a running dual threat quarterback per se. He was more of a pocket quarterback. But that being said, size does not have to be a concern if Garrett does the right things and is smart when he has the ball in his hands. The next position I want to talk about is the running back position. Now, with the running back position, C.J. Donaldson, who also, by the way, did his own interview, I recommend you go check that out. There are any of the media outlets that have YouTube channels, go check out their interview of C.J. Donaldson when he met with the press earlier this week. But C.J. Donaldson has gotten himself in a lot better shape. He said that Neal Brown was brutally honest with him and said, look, C.J., you have got to keep yourself in better physical condition. And he's done that. And he talked about how he's learning to stay healthy, not only for his team and for this season, but for his future. He talked about NFL running backs like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and those guys, and how their body is their business. And I think he even quoted something similar to that. My body is my business. So he understands the importance. He's finally starting to learn the importance of keeping himself healthy. And in order to do that, being in shape is a big part of that. So Neal Brown has made that a point, and CJ's done it. And by all accounts, from all the coaches they've talked to, CJ has looked phenomenal at practice, just like everyone expected. Another running back that's gotten a lot of attention so far in interviews and whatnot is Jaheim White. Jaheim White, who's the freshman that we all saw break out in the spring game, Chad Scott said in his press conference this week, they will find ways to get Jaheim White the football, whether it's on kickoff returns, whether it's passing, whether it's running, whatever. And Neal Brown even said he has a different gear than the other backs on this team. I think Jaheim White has the makings to be an absolute superstar. And now I don't expect him to come in his true freshman year necessarily and be a superstar, but I do think he's good enough to get playing time and to crack the 3 deep, if not even the 2 deep on this team. I think he's that good. They also talked about DJ Oliver in the interview with CJ Donaldson. CJ Donaldson talked about how DJ Oliver is like looking in the mirror at himself and how he was really impressed with DJ and his ability to run the football at his size. The next position I want to touch on is offensive line. Now, with the offensive line, the one thing they talked about that I want to touch on the most is Doug Nestor playing right tackle. Even though he played guard last year, and I think he's played guard the majority of his career, the coaches feel like tackle is his natural position where he's best at. Last year, he kind of had to play guard by necessity because, as a matter of fact, most of you may remember, he started the season against Pitt at tackle. But because of an injury to their guard in that game, which was Jordan White at the time, they had to move him back down to guard and finish the game with Brandon Yates and Jaquay Hubbard at tackle. But they plan on playing him at tackle to start the season. And I think that's good for a couple of different reasons. Number one, like I said earlier, Coach Brown and I think even Coach Moore has made the statement that that's probably Doug's best position. And the second thing is, let's say Nico does end up winning the starting job, or even if he doesn't win a starting job, but he still plays. Nico's left-handed, guys. So, usually you put your best offensive lineman on the left side to guard your quarterback's blind side. Well, they've got Wyatt Milam over there, who's another great lineman in his own right. But if Nico's in the game, they have someone like Doug Nestor to protect his blind side. And we remember last year, the weakest spot on that offensive line was the right tackle spot. They can shore that up by putting Doug Nestor, who's one of their top 3 linemen, at that spot. So they'll have their top 3 linemen playing left tackle, right tackle, and center. Arguably the 3 most important positions on that offensive line. And obviously we know at center is Zach Frazier, who's likely going to be a very high NFL draft pick. If he doesn't get to go in the first round, he'll likely go in the second. Now, at the wide receiver spot, they talked about E.J. Horton and his speed. Coach Brown said he had a really good day at practice this week. Garrett Green talked about him, too, in his interview with 3 guys, said he was really, really fast. Devin Carter came up again. Coach Brown said he obviously looks good and is the most experienced guy. They expect him to be their number 1 receiver. And another one that came up that kind of surprised me, though, is Noah Massey. Noah Massey was a player they picked up out of the portal during the offseason from Angelo State, a school I've never even heard of. Let's face it, guys. Where's Angelo State? I know nothing about it. Very small school, Division II school, I believe, Angelo State. And he's a big-bodied receiver. But instead of putting him on the outside, they moved him into the slot. That's one of the things when you look at the depth chart, you'll notice. They have Noah Massey playing the slot position. And he's one of the biggest guys on the team, or one of the biggest receivers on the team. And Coach Brown explained the reason they did that is really the only pass-catching tight end they have right now who's ready to play is Cole Taylor, the transfer from LSU. The other tight ends right now either aren't ready, or you've got, Traylon Davis, who's more of a pass-blocking specialist. By moving Noah Massey to slot, it gives them another big-bodied receiver to catch passes across the middle. Another reason that's important is in the run game. You've got that slot receiver there who's big and can probably block and move people around a little bit and create running lanes for those running backs a little bit better than maybe a smaller slot guy would be able to. And then last but not least on the receiver front, Rodney Gallagher. We've all been excited about Rodney Gallagher. The four-star receiver who we got out of Pennsylvania. According to Coach Brown, Rodney has already gained 12 to 14 pounds since he's been there. And let's remember, guys, Rodney Gallagher did not get to campus until the summer, until sometime in June. And he's already put on 12 to 14 pounds. And Coach Brown said by doing that, it has enabled Gallagher to compete for playing time. And he probably will be able now to compete and see the field more because he's been able to put on that weight. And another thing Coach Brown said he's been impressed with and pleasantly surprised with, so to speak, with Gallagher is his ability to block. He's been more physical than he thought he would be, and he's a better blocker than he thought he would be because he was not required to block in high school. He played quarterback in high school. Quarterbacks don't usually get asked to block. So, and, that's usually one of the biggest adjustments for a player coming from high school to college is their ability to block, especially at those skill positions. Because a lot of these star athletes, they're usually one of the best players on their high school team. They don't have to block a lot because they have the ball in their hands all the time. So it's very often a huge adjustment for these guys. But with Gallagher, he apparently is catching on really fast. He's playing really physical, and he's blocking really well for a freshman. So that will help him see the field more. Now I want to move over to the defensive side of the ball. I don't have as much on the defensive side I want to talk about, but the main thing, there are really two things I want to talk about defensively. The first one is about the defense as a whole. And that's the fact that they will be doing more tackling at practice. I think they did more tackling in spring ball, and that's going to carry over into fall camp. Coach Brown talked about how they didn't do a lot of tackling last year because they didn't have a lot of depth. So they did less tackling at practice, and they paid for it come the season when they started playing games. He said their tackling was bad at Pitt. He said it was atrocious at Kansas, and they were just a poor tackling team really all year last year. And he feels like maybe not tackling enough at practice was a big contributor to that. And also the fact that they're deeper this year on the defensive side of the ball than they were last year at most positions anyway, that it will enable them to do more tackling. They don't have to worry about injuries quite as much. And then also reminded me of a video I did a few weeks ago about West Virginia relying on the running game to protect their defense. And there was an article written in The Athletic about how one of the ways that these air raid coaches, one of the ways they've evolved over the years, and even Dana Holgorsen did it when he was at West Virginia, is they started tackling more at practice, which enabled their defense to be better. In that article that I mentioned, Tony Gibson was even interviewed in it, and he talked about his time at West Virginia coaching under Dana Holgorsen, being the DC under Dana Holgorsen, and how Coach Holgorsen realized that, hey, we've got to start tackling more if we want our defense to be able to tackle and be competitive in games. So Coach Brown has now seen that apparently as well and has decided to go back to doing more tackling this year. And he's hoping that'll translate over to a better defense come game one against Penn State. And by gosh, they're going to need it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the will linebacker spot. This is the one I'm going to put a huge red question mark on this position. It's the one position most of us fans are concerned about. And Coach Brown himself, when asked about it, even said to him, it's probably the most intriguing position on the team. I think he used that word intriguing to try to be a little bit more positive about it. To me, it's more of a question mark. But Coach Brown isn't hiding from it, at least. He is at least addressing it. And he mentioned there's 3 guys right now who he's looking at to fill that role. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. I think they pronounce it Jaito. I've always called him Jairo Faveras. There's Trey Lathan, and there's Ben Cutter. Now, Ben Cutter's a true freshman. And neither Jairo or Trey or Jaito, however you pronounce it, neither of those guys have played much either. And at that spot, so they have very, very little to no experience at that position. They tried to get a will linebacker out of the transfer portal. It did not work out. They were not able to get anyone. So they're going to rely on these guys to hopefully these guys, at least one, if not 2 of these guys, will step up and be able to play well enough to solidify that spot. They do have options. If that doesn't work, they do have some Mike linebackers they could potentially move over, like a Tyrick Austin Cave, who they got out of the portal from Miami a year ago. who right now is listed as the backup Mike linebacker behind Lee Koba. And they could also, and I think this is a last resort for them, but I think they could bring Lance Dixon back from Spear to will linebacker, which is actually the original position he played when he was brought to West Virginia, was will linebacker. But they felt like his skill set would translate better to the Spear position, so they moved him to Spear, mainly because of his speed, I think, and his size. But they could do that if they have to, because at least Lance Dixon has experience playing the position. So that is the one major question mark right now on this defense, in my opinion. I know there's the questions about the defensive secondary. I personally think the defensive secondary is going to be better this year. I don't know how much better. We're still having to rely on a lot of transfers, but at least the guys we are bringing back have more experience than the guys we had out there last season. So I think that will go a long way. Do I think this defense is going to be world beaters? I don't, but I do think they can be top 50 in the country, which I think if our offense is as good as I think it can be, I think a top 50 defense will make this a good football team. I really do. I don't think our defense needs to be world beaters to be good, because I think the way our offense is going to play, as far as not only do I think they'll play well, but I think the style of offense West Virginia is going to play this year will be a little easier on our defense and put them in less negative yard situations and, more positive field position, which will help them hopefully perform better at the end of the day. Well, let me know, Koozas Corner family, what you think about these 6 takeaways I gave you. I'd like to hear your biggest takeaway, and what are some of your biggest concerns going into this season. Also, guys, at the bottom of this screen, I have the names of my channel members, those who are members of the Koozas Corner VIP Club. I have the pub level members, which is the $2.99 level, and the club level, which is the $4.99 level. Scrolling along the bottom, I had the $4.99 level at the beginning of the video. I have the $2.99 level scrolling now. I'd like to give a shout out to some of my newer channel members, Mike Rayner, Timothy Hetrick Jr., and Travis Anderson. So shout out to all my channel, as well as Old Golden Blue, who is my newest club level VIP member. We'd like to give you, and if you guys want to become a member of the Koozas Corner VIP Club, be sure to hit that join button below. Take advantage of the perks I have to offer there, including if you're a club level member, you get merch discounts. And oh, by the way, anybody who wants to go into my merch store right now, you get 20% off all merch August 6th and August 7th. Sale runs out August 7th, so get your 20% off discount in my merch store right now. Don't miss out on that deal. It's for a limited time, August 6th, August 7th. And like I said, if you're a club level VIP member, you get even a little bit bigger discount with a special link I have posted in the community tab. There are other perks that go along with membership as well. You can check all that out by hitting the join button. You can also make a one-time donation, what I like to call my tip jar. If you like the service I provided today at Koozas Corner, hit that heart button with a $sign in it. Give me a one-time donation. Guys, there are ways you can help me out for free as well. You can hit the thumbs up button, which is a like. You can share it out with your family and friends. Drop a comment below. And last but not least, subscribe to the channel. Help me I'm really close to 6,000 subscribers. Help push me over the edge with a subscription right now if you haven't done so. With that being said, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in to this episode. And until the next one, Q Country Roads.